Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is, well, it's a little different.
Oh.
Yeah, instead of one big source, we're going to be looking at a bunch of little ones.
Oh.
Like a whole collection of online anecdotes from
Yeah.
folks who, well, they voted for Trump in 24, and now they're dealing with some consequences they maybe didn't see coming.
So like real people, real stories.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating. It's not just about policies, you know?
Right.
It's about how those policies are like rippling out and actually hitting people in their everyday lives.
I see.
And look, we're not here to take sides or anything.
Of course.
It's more about trying to understand all these different experiences. Some of them are honestly pretty surprising.
I bet.
And speaking of connecting the dots,
Yeah.
huge shout out to our sponsor, OtisWho Network out of St. Louis. They're all about helping you make sense of the world.
Yeah, with all the information overload these days.
Exactly. They're a lifesaver.
I can imagine.
You know, it's funny. That old "this you" meme from way back in 2015, it's making a comeback.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know the one where someone's doing something dumb
Right.
and the caption's like, "this you." Well, it's popping up everywhere after the election.
Huh. Interesting.
It's like people are starting to realize maybe those choices at the ballot box had some...
Unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that realization is hitting people right between the eyes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into some of these stories.
Okay.
First up, we've got a group of Magi farmers.
Magi.
Oh, right. For anyone who's not familiar, that's Make America Great Again.
Right. Trump's slogan.
Yep. So these farmers, they campaigned hard for Trump.
Okay.
But now they're starting to feel the pinch from his tariff policies.
Oh, the irony.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The very policies they supported are now squeezing their profits.
You know, it's a classic example of how sometimes that gap between like what politicians say and what actually happens economically,
Yeah.
it can be huge, especially for farmers.
Totally. They're super sensitive to those trade policies.
Absolutely.
All right, next up, we've got this story about a black Trump voter.
Oh, okay.
And he's publicly questioning why there are no black individuals in Trump's cabinet.
That's a good point.
Right. It's like sometimes those campaign promises don't really translate into action.
Yeah, it makes you think about representation, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, does aligning with a certain party actually mean you'll be represented?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one is wild and kind of ironic.
How?
So there's this Magi mom who's a huge advocate for vaccines.
Oh, okay.
But guess what? Her friends, a lot of them are Magi too, and they're into QAnon.
QAnon, wow.
Yeah, you know, that whole thing about the deep state and child trafficking rings.
Right, it's a lot.
And they've basically cut her off because she's pro-vaccine.
Oh, wow. So she's like caught in the crossfire of her own political tribe.
Exactly.
It's like you have to agree with everything 100% or you're out.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. It shows how these online echo chambers can really...
Like shut down any kind of dissenting opinions.
Yeah, exactly. You have to conform or else.
Okay, and then there are the folks who were all about their Magi hats, voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And now they're realizing, maybe a little late, that China isn't actually paying those tariffs.
Uh-oh.
Yep, you know who is.
They are.
Bingo.
It's like a real-life lesson in economics.
Right.
Tariffs are complicated, and sometimes the rhetoric doesn't match the reality.
I guess it's easy to get caught up in the campaign slogans.
Absolutely.
And then we've got this mom who voted Republican specifically because she might need IVF in the future.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. Senate Republicans have been the ones blocking bills to guarantee access to IVF treatments.
Oh, wow. The irony.
Right. It shows how personal needs can drive voting decisions even if they don't quite align with the party line.
Absolutely. People are complex, you know?
For sure, it's not always black and white.
Definitely not.
Okay, then there's this Black Magi supporter
Right?
who was totally against social safety net programs until he got laid off and had to rely on them himself.
Oh, wow. So experience changed his perspective.
It's like those systems become a lot more real when you're the one needing them.
I could see that.
Next, we have a Trump voter who voted against Obamacare,
Okay.
not realizing it was the same thing as the Affordable Care Act,
Oh, no.
which is the policy that made his mother's cancer treatment possible.
Wow, that's a tough one.
It really highlights the problem of misinformation, you know?
Yeah, the Affordable Care Act has been so politicized, it's hard to know what's true.
Right. People need clear and accurate information to make informed decisions.
For sure.
And then there are the folks who voted for Trump because of the economy, even though their parents are undocumented.
That's a tricky situation.
It's like they're trying to balance their own economic anxieties with their family's situation.
Yeah, it shows how complex these decisions can be.
Absolutely. Then we have this conservative veteran
Okay.
who describes himself as significantly disabled.
Right.
And he's worried about how Trump's policies might affect his benefits.
That's understandable.
It's a reminder that policy changes can have a huge impact on vulnerable populations.
Yeah, no matter what their political beliefs are.
Exactly. And speaking of unexpected consequences,
Yeah.
we have this group of Trump-supporting coworkers who were shocked when their holiday bonuses were cut. They think it's because of tariffs hurting their company.
It's like that saying, personal is political.
Right. It shows how these big economic policies can trickle down and affect people's wallets.
Absolutely. It hits home in a very real way.
Okay, last one for this batch. We hear from someone whose family is super métier, and they were totally shocked when this person said they might not be able to help them out financially anymore.
Why is that?
Because of potential federal cuts that might affect their own budget.
Oh, wow. So politics is creating tension within the family.
Yeah, it's a reminder that these political choices can really strain relationships.
Especially when money is involved.
Definitely.
It's a good reminder that we're all connected, you know?
Yeah.
Our choices affect those around us, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely.
It's kind of sad in a way, you know?
Yeah, it's like those family dinners are going to be a little tense.
For sure. So this last anecdote we have, it's about a MAGA supporter
Right.
who was totally turned off by Trump's cabinet appointments.
What do you mean?
Like he just got the ick from them.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like that feeling when something just rubs you the wrong way.
I get it.
It makes you think about those expectations versus reality situations.
Right, like you have this idea in your head, and then the actual thing doesn't match up.
Exactly. And it can be really disillusioning, especially in politics.
For sure. You know, it's kind of wild going through all these stories.
Yeah.
It's almost as if some voters were operating on a whole different set of facts.
That's a good point. It really highlights the role of information in all of this.
Right. And misinformation, too.
Definitely access to accurate information is so crucial for a democracy.
Absolutely. But these stories suggest that's not always happening.
Yeah, there's a gap between the information that's out there and what people are actually absorbing.
And what they believe.
Exactly, and that can be really dangerous.
It's kind of mind-boggling, you know, to see this disconnect between what was promised and what's actually happening.
I hear you. It's like hearing two completely different versions of reality.
Right. And that disconnect can lead to all sorts of problems.
Yeah, like feelings of betrayal or anger.
Totally. Makes sense.
It underscores the importance of critical thinking and media literacy.
Oh, yeah. Fair.
Especially now with so much information coming at us from all directions.
We're constantly bombarded. It's hard to filter it all.
It's overwhelming.
So, okay, we've heard from farmers, veterans, families, people from all walks of life.
A real cross-section of America.
What's the big takeaway here? What are we supposed to learn from all this?
I think the biggest thing is that these stories show the human side of politics.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that sometimes.
It's not just about abstract policies, it's about real people's lives.
Their hopes, their struggles.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that those political choices have real-world consequences.
Both for ourselves and for others.
It's a call for empathy, I think.
Sophie.
Yeah, to try and understand why people make the choices they do, even if we disagree with them.
It's about seeing the world through their eyes.
Exactly, and maybe having a little more compassion for those who see things differently.
Because at the end of the day, we all have to live together.
We're all in this together, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like even when we're arguing about politics, we got to remember we're all human.
Exactly, we're all part of the same fabric, right?
Right. And finding ways to connect is so important, especially now.
It's like, how can we have these tough conversations without tearing each other apart?
It's a good question. You know, and speaking of good stuff,
Yeah.
big shout out to OtisWho Network out of St. Louis.
They're awesome.
They're doing amazing work helping us make sense of the world.
With all its craziness and information overload.
Seriously, they're a lifesaver, so check them out.
Definitely.
So before we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
How do you think these personal stories we've shared today connect to the bigger picture of politics?
Yeah, what do they say about where we are as a country right now?
And how we talk to each other about these really important issues?
It's like, can we even have a conversation without yelling?
Right. And how much does empathy play a role in all of this?
Can we try to understand where the other side is coming from?
Even if we totally disagree with them.
It's tough, but it's worth trying.
Because whether we voted red, blue, or whatever, we all have to live with the consequences.
And those consequences are real.
They affect our lives, our families, our communities.
So maybe by listening to each other's stories,
The good, the bad, the unexpected.
we can start to find a better way forward.
A way that's built on understanding and compassion.
That's a great goal.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everybody.
Again, a pleasure.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.